bullet journals are great for planning, scheduling, journaling, but they can also be great for helping us grow in our faith. Hi guys, welcome back to our channel. If you're new here, my name's Jenny and this is Arnold the Praying Penguin. And today we're going to be looking back at the bullet journal spreads that I've used over the last few years to hopefully give you some ideas for bullet journal spreads that you could use to help you grow in your faith. But first, let me know down in the comments, what are your favourite spreads to include in your bullet journal? So these are my 6 bullet journals that I have used for the last 6 years, I guess. This is my current one for 2023, but these are all the other ones I have used over the last few years. And I have tabbed them up with different spreads for us to look at, although I did realise just before filming this video that I managed to completely forget about 2022, so we'll have a look and see what we can find in here as well. But we're going to look at a few different categories. So we're going to look at prayer, we're going to look at Bible study and exploring the Bible, we're going to look at kind of challenges and goals and that kind of thing. We're going to look at other kind of yearly spreads, anything else that comes up. So let's start with prayer. We are obviously big fans of prayer on this channel, so we're going to have a look at some prayer spreads that you can include in your bullet journal. Now, I don't think I actually included any prayer spreads in this bullet journal. What year was this? So this is 2018, and I don't think I actually included any kind of specific prayer spreads. I included some like on a monthly basis, but none at the beginning of the year, so we will come back to that. In 2019, we go to this orange journal, and let's have a look. So I will pop up pictures of the spreads on the screen. But for 2019, I basically just did a big prayers spread at the beginning of the year. So I had 4 boxes to kind of put my big prayers in. And the idea was that I could put the big overall prayer. So I have kind of my health and I have job hunting at the top, and then I can have them broken down and kind of break down that prayer and pray very specifically and kind of see how God has answered that prayer as we go along. So for example, for job hunting, I've got like write a good application, get an invite for interview to go well, those kind of things. And then I could cross those off once those prayers were answered and look at how those prayers were answered. So I actually really like that concept. I might have to bring that back at some point. We then go to 2020. And this one I did a little bit differently. So we have a page for prayer requests and a page for answers to prayer. But for this time, I've just done drawings basically and filled the space with just little pictures that I drew, little doodles, and some words for things that I was praying about, both that were prayer requests and answers to prayer. This one was interesting because I think some prayers it's just hard to put into a picture form. And I think because I'd left the space to do pictures, I almost felt like I should do pictures. And as you can tell from these drawings, I'm not the most arty person. 2021. So in 2021, I kind of did a similar idea, but a little bit different. So I had a page of prayer requests, but this time split into family, friends, community, and world. And then I had a page of prayer of thanksgivings, which were just kind of written out prayers of thanksgiving. A definite theme in some of these earlier years is just kind of, how do I use this to the best of my ability? Like, these are really good ideas for spreads, but am I actually using them? How can I make myself use them and kind of remind myself that they're there? Because they're just at the beginning of my bullet journal, I'd often just kind of forget that they were there and not necessarily think to write my prayers in that place. Then we come to 2022, so last year, and this time I really focused on the prayer requests side and turned this almost into a bit of a prayer wall. So I had different categories for myself, my husband, for my daughter, for other family, for friends, community, country, and world. So they each had like a little box on the page, and then I would put the prayers in there. And actually this one I did use a lot more than kind of previous years. This is definitely like a way of doing it that I really like, and it just allows you to kind of write your prayers into different categories, and it gives you some prompts when you come to this page to think, oh, what do I want to pray for my friends? What do I want to pray for the country? Those kind of things. It gives you that prompt. So this year for 2023, I actually did a very similar spread to 2022. This time it's just on one page, so each one is slightly kind of smaller box. But again, I really like the kind of prompts, being able to write them into a little box and categorize them. And the other thing that I did new this year that I also really like is doing a prayer for the year, so a prayer for 2023. And I literally just wrote out my prayer for this year on a piece of paper and stuck that into my bullet journal, and it's right at the front of my bullet journal, the first thing I see when I open it up, And it just reminds me to pray this prayer over the year and to keep praying it as I go throughout this year. And I really like having that, and I definitely want to keep doing that in future years. And I definitely recommend that if you can write a prayer for the year and then keep praying that prayer over and over again. It's a great reminder to have it in your bullet journal. Okay, so that was prayer. Let's move on to the Bible and how we look at Bible study and Bible reading and different scriptures and what we can do with that. So if we go way back to 2018, the first way I did this was having a Reading the Bible tracker. So I've got all of the books of the Bible and all the chapters of each of those books. And I would colour in a box when I'd read that chapter of that book in the Bible. So this takes up quite a few pages in my bullet journal, but it was really nice to be able to see kind of where I was in the Bible, and when I'd read a whole book it would be all coloured in, and that was really nice. But the problem that I found with this setup was that I wasn't reading the whole Bible in a year, so I could never complete this spread, which I like being able to finish something and complete the spread and it looking all nice and tidy. And it kind of looks like I haven't done very much, because this is often I've studied a chapter in more detail, or I've really read through the same book several times maybe, and so it doesn't look very good, which I find disheartening. But I do really like this concept, and if you are someone that reads the whole Bible in 1 year every year, then this actually might be a really nice thing for you to use and to track that. In 2019, I again did the same kind of Bible study tracker, slightly different design. I think it does look a bit nicer, but I kind of came across the same problem, was that I kind of lost all my progress from the previous year, but I wasn't then going to read the whole of the Bible. In 2020, I didn't actually include any kind of Bible specific spreads in my bullet journal. And I think that's because I just wasn't sure how to track it, because the way that I'd done for the last couple of years wasn't really working for me, but I hadn't come up with a new way of doing it. In 2021, I also didn't include a Bible specific spread. I again kind of included it in my goals and challenges. So again, we'll come back to that. And then we come to 2022. And for 2022, I did go back to including a specific Bible study spread, Bible reading spread, because it was something I really wanted to have in my bullet journal. So for this one, I had a page for Bible reading and a page for Bible study. So I wanted to separate the two, because to me they are quite different and I wanted to track them slightly different. Whether I just read through a passage or read through a whole book of the Bible, I think that is quite different to when I'm studying it in depth. And I think they're both very valuable and both very important, but I wanted to kind of track them differently. So I had a whole table full of all the different books of the Bible, and the idea was that I would colour one in once I'd read that. And then for Bible study, I would put just the book and then the amount of chapters in that book. And I would kind of colour in a box each time I'd studied that chapter of that book. And again, I love this concept, and I think this concept is a really good idea, but I didn't do very well at using it that year. This was the year that I had a baby, so that might be my excuse for this year. Then for 2023, for this year, I again did the same Bible reading spread, where I have all of the books of the Bible listed and I colour them in as I go. I probably need to update this, because I definitely have read more of the Bible than just one book. But I think this is the problem. Sometimes I'm reading books of the Bible without necessarily tracking it or thinking to write it down or keep a record of it. And that's what I kind of need to either remember what I've done or remember to write it down in here. And the other spread that I included that was new for 2023 is scriptures to read when you feel ... So the idea of this spread is that I write in an emotion or a feeling or something in each box, and then write a list of Bible verses that I can turn to when I feel that way, whether that's to encourage me or to make me feel better or to help me in that situation. And I am so looking forward to having this spread all filled in. I think it's going to be really great, really helpful. And I think I really like this as a concept, so I would really recommend trying this if that sounds interesting to you. Next up, we have goals and challenges. So let's go back to 2018 again. And in this year, I dedicated a spread to 7 sacred spaces, which is a concept that I learnt about kind of just before this year, I think. So it must have been in 2017. But the idea is looking at kind of monasteries and those kind of places and what the setup of those places can tell us about our spiritual lives and how we can kind of split our spiritual lives into these different sections and kind of evaluate how well we're doing in those different areas. So for example, you have the cell, so your personal spiritual life, you have the chapel for corporate liturgy, you have the scriptorium for passing on knowledge, the chapter for making decisions, cloister for encounters, community, that kind of thing, the refectory for hospitality, and the garden for physical and community. And I really loved that concept. I'll definitely link some information down below if you'd like to find out more about that. But yeah, this was something that I found really interesting that year and kind of made some notes on things that I wanted to do to improve in those different areas, like goals. And the other challenge that I included in 2018 was actually much later in the year, but this was a 19 before 2019 spread. So I gave myself 19 goals that I wanted to complete between October and December. And it looks like I only ticked one off, but I can see that a lot of these I did actually complete. Whether it was before 2019 or not, I can't remember. But a lot of these I have now done, so I passed, we'll say. Then we come to 2020, and for my goals for this year, I did 4 big goals. So I did read the Bible in 1 year, I did exercise every week, and weekly blogs for Arnold. And the 4th one was a personal one. But for the weekly goals, I just wrote out the numbers 1 to 52 and then would cross out if I'd completed the goal that week. And then for the Bible in 1 year, I did 1 to 67 for the books of the Bible. And again, I know that I did do more exercise than is in here. And I know that I did a lot of Arnold weekly blogs in that year because that was pandemic year and I did more blogs than usual. But I just wasn't very good at tracking it in here. This didn't necessarily work for me. But I think if that is something that you want to do, a weekly kind of goal, this might work for you. And I also did 20 in 2020, so I did kind of 20 smaller goals, like run my 90th park run, see a musical, make a new friend, those kind of things were all on here, and then I would colour them over once I'd completed them. To be honest, I think the pandemic kind of affected this year because there were certain ones I then couldn't complete because I couldn't do parkrun, I couldn't go to a musical because they were closed or they got cancelled, all that kind of stuff. So I didn't complete that one very well because it got a bit depressing not being able to do anything. In 2021 I did a dedicated goals spread, so I did how many goals? Kind of 16 different goals, although some of them were just kind of tracking things, and they each had a box, and then I'd break that down to help myself track and kind of tick off as I got towards each goal. As you can see, some of these I was able to track really well, and some of them it just didn't work out quite so well. And I think that was again because I hadn't planned out what those different stages were for some of these goals. It was much harder to then keep up with, and I kind of just never decided what the steps were in that goal. I really need to decide those steps at the beginning of the year, is what I'm learning from this. But in 2021, I also did a 21 in 2021 challenge. So I had 21 different challenges that I wanted to complete throughout the year, and then I ticked them off when I'd done them. So there were things like share your testimony, surprise someone, donate food to a food bank, go camping, kind of different things that were just kind of, when they were done, and I could tick them off. And I love those kind of challenges. I love being able to tick things off. In a similar way, I actually had a reading challenge in 2021 as well, with lots of different prompts for books that I should read and things to kind of help me read some different things. And I had a whole spread dedicated to that, and I did complete that. So this is a very nice looking spread all completed. In 2022, we also had a goals page, and this followed very similarly to the year before. So this one I had some things like use a prayer journal, study the Bible, and those ones I didn't do very well at keeping track of. Some of the others I did slightly better, but again, I had a baby in February of this year, so I just didn't do massively well at kind of following along with some of these goals. In 2022, I also did a 22 in 2022 spread. How many times do I have to say 2022 there? But this time it was a bit more focused on my daughter. So I had my daughter in February. This was kind of tracking 22 kind of key moments in her first year. So when she was born, when she came home, her first church service, when she met some cows, her first time swimming, all that kind of stuff was in here, and I just wrote down the dates. So I really enjoyed that. And then for this year, 2023, I again did quite a similar spread to the last 2 years, because while it hasn't necessarily worked for me, I do think it is a really good way of doing it for me. And it is going reasonably well this year in terms of tracking things. This year I split it into 4 different categories, so personal habits, family and community, my ministry and leisure. Those are the kind of 4 categories that I've then put goals underneath. And I've got different ways of tracking different things, which I think is what's working better for me this year, is that I'm not trying to squeeze goals into a tracking system that doesn't necessarily work. Some of these are just reminders, like pray ceaselessly, and some of them are things like number of subscribers, which I can then cross off when I get towards that goal. And of course, for 2023, I also have a 23 in 2023 spread. And for this year, I've kind of gone back to having different kind of fun activities. I called it Do 23 Fun Things. So we've got things like go to the zoo, visit the library, games day, go swimming, go to the farm. All those kind of things are on here, and then I write down when I did it and often where we went. And the other new idea that I did was 23 23s in 2023. So for this, I came up with 23 different things that I wanted to do 23 times. That's right. So things like family fun days, meeting new people, 23 different places visited, 23 videos created, 23 miles run, that kind of thing. And then I tick off each time I do that thing once. And I kind of work towards doing it 23 times. And as you can see, I really love challenges and setting goals and challenges and all that kind of stuff. If you want to see all of my 2023 goals explained in a bit more detail, I will link that video down in the description for you to see. And I just want to mention a few of the other kind of spreads that I've included throughout the years that might be interesting to you. In 2018, I included a 2018 playlist spread where I wrote down the songs, whether that's worship songs, secular songs, whatever it is, that really stood out to me that year and that really I listened to a lot, basically, that I had on repeat. In 2019, I had a books to read spread, and this was kind of a bit before I got properly back into reading, so I just have 4 books written down and then broken down into chapters so that I could colour in each time I read a chapter of one of those books. So if you're someone who wants to kind of get back into reading but isn't going to read a ton, then I think this is a really great way to kind of motivate yourself and kind of track as you go through the chapters. In 2021, I had then got really back into reading, so I have a whole couple of pages dedicated to reading, and this is something that's carried on in all of my bullet journals since. So I have a whole spread dedicated to just the books that I've read and their rating, and I just wrote all of them down. And I've got things like an around the world tracker where I track where the author is from and where the book is set, and just see where in the world I am reading from. But those are just some of the bullet journal spreads that I've been using over the last 6 years. But some of the ones I'd love to be able to include in the future, I also just wanted to give a quick mention to. So I'd love to work out some kind of tracker for memorising Bible verses, whether it's tracking which Bible verses I'm memorising or how good I'm getting at memorising them, that kind of thing, just to work out kind of where I am with them. I don't know quite what that would look like, but it's something I would like to do in the future. I'd quite like to bring back a playlist of the year, just to be able to see kind of what songs I've discovered and loved in that year. I'd love to have a space for writing prayers for current events, so when something's happening in the news or in the world or in my community, just being able to kind of give a space to write out prayers for that thing and keep them somewhere in my bullet journal. I'd also love to have a specific space for writing Christian book reviews, or a space that's dedicated to my Christian TBR. So when I'm thinking, what books do I want to read, I can think, actually, do I want to read a specifically Christian book at the moment? Here's my list of all the ones that I want to read. And I can kind of note down any that I see, whether that's on social media or get recommended to me. I can kind of keep those all in one place. But I hope this video has maybe given you some ideas and inspiration for spreads that you can include in your bullet journal to help you in your faith. Let me know down in the comments which of these spreads would you like to include in your next bullet journal setup. And if you'd like to see my full setup for 2023, do check out this video right here. And we will see you very soon for a new video. Bye!